Okay, folks, it's 6 p.m. So good evening. My name is Ken Berry, Mayor of the Village of Lions Bay. I will chair this evening's public hearing. So with that, we'll move forward. There's a few ground rules that we'll just read through. It's about a dozen or so, and then we'll backtrack and hand it off to the staff to give us more background. So just open, first item is opening and purpose. This public meeting is convened pursuant to section 464 of the Local Government Act to provide the public an opportunity to present input regarding the proposed amendments to the zoning and development bylaw number 5/20/2017. Council has given first and second readings to the proposed bylaw and amendments and directed that the public hearing be held prior to the third reading. The public hearing has been advertised in the North Shore News on October 22nd and the 29th, 2025. All relevant documents are available in the public hearing record binder at the front table in the municipal office and online. Second item, legal framework and conduct. The Local Government Act requires that any person who believes their property interest is affected by the zoning bylaw be given an opportunity to be heard and to present their case. Council members must not engage in private communications with any party during the hearing and may only consider material available to all attendees. The public hearing is the opportunity for the public to present views and information, not to debate, negotiate, or ask questions of council or other attendees. Council members are entitled to hold views prior to the hearing, but are expected to consider all public input with an open mind. Number 3, hearing procedure. Staff will summarize the proposed amendments and they will read a summary of the written submissions received during the notice period. Staff will call speakers in the order they appear on the speakers list. After listed, the speakers of the floor will be open to anyone in attendance wishing to speak. Item number 4, speaker protocol. Speakers must state and spell their full name for the public record. Comments should be limited to issues directly related to the proposed bylaw amendments. Each speaker is asked to respect a 5-minute time limit. Everyone may speak once before speaking again, provided new information is presented on a second or third speaking engagement. There is no opportunity to ask questions or have questions answered by staff or members of the council. They are present only to hear from the speakers. The audience is asked to respect each speaker and refrain from interruptions, clapping, cheering, booing. The chair may conclude. This is the script I'm reading from, obviously. Let's see. The chair may conclude any presentation that is irrelevant, abusive, or repetitive. Written submissions. Number 5. Written submissions must be provided to staff before the close of the hearing to be included in the public hearing record binder. No additional written or verbal submissions from the public may be considered after the hearing closes. 6, post-hearing considerations. Council may receive staff reports or conduct internal research after the hearing. Absent councillor members may participate in the consideration of the bylaw amendments if they receive a report summarizing the representations made during the hearing. Council may alter aspects of the bylaw amendments before adoption, except changing the use or density. 7, introduction of staff. At this time, we'll come back to this number 7, but I'll just read through the items. Staff will introduce, or I'll introduce Krista Kenna, who will prepare the minutes of verbal submissions. The CAO will also provide an overview of the proposed amendments and summarize any written submissions received. Speaker engagement. I'll call the first and second persons on the speaker list to the microphone. After listed speakers, any other attendees may line up to speak. Speakers may return to the microphone if additional points are new. If they're online, we'll call upon them at that time. Staff follow-up. Staff may respond to clarify comments or questions raised during the hearing. 10, the final call for speakers. The chair will call 3 times for the additional speakers. First call for any first-time speakers, second call for any further speakers, and third and final call for any additional speakers. The closing of the meeting. If there are no further speakers, the chair will thank attendees and we'll close the meeting accordingly. With that, I'll back up to item number 7, the introduction of the staff. At this time, I'll introduce Krista Kenna, who will take it from here. Thanks, Krista.
Okay.
Krista, sorry.
I'm actually gonna pass it to Ross.
Okay, Mr. Blackwell.
Thank you very much. Just to confirm, Ms. Kenna, we've received no written representations with regard to this public hearing?
Not from those joining us in the gallery, unless anyone has a written submission that they would like to provide? No? Okay, so just the handful that we received earlier.
With regard to this public hearing, not the second one, right?
Oh, sorry, nothing in regard to the setback amendment.
Public hearing number one.
Correct.
Okay, good. Thank you. I'll keep this really short and sweet. The bottom line here is that the matter before council with respect to this public hearing pertains to section 7.7.2 of the zoning and development bylaw. This is proposing a relatively minor text change to clarify language that refers to front yard and rear yard. And under that section, a reference to two front yards, which is not a legally viable concept. So it's about amending that so it reads properly, which is front yard and rear yard. And that's the essence of these amendments and the public hearing pertaining to them.
Okay, anything else, Ross?
Nope, that's it. I can turn it over to you unless there are any questions.
Okay, with that, I'll call any speakers from the gallery before I go online. Please approach the podium, state your name, spell your name for the record, and then we'll move to the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. It's Russ Meiklejohn, 2 S's, Meiklejohn, 59 Brunswick. I'm familiar with generally these amendments, and I applaud the CAO for seeing something that needed clarifying. We had an application where this came up where the language didn't really particularly make sense. I think the language amendment addresses that. I think that's great. I am concerned about one aspect of this. I will remind everybody that within the zoning bylaw, there is a Brunswick Beach overlay, which typically has lesser setbacks, less restrictive development parameters, and the balance of the village, because Brunswick has much smaller lots, and the application of the same rules to Brunswick would make a lot of the lots very difficult to develop and build up. With that, I want to point out in 771, which is the first portion before the amended wording, despite sections 7.5 and 7.6.2, 7.6.2 is a Brunswick overlay, and it goes on to describe the setback being the average of the two adjacent setbacks of two adjacent parcels. The example, parcel B shares interior parcel lines with parcels A and C and is not within the Brunswick Beach overlay area. Goes on to describe how that would generate a setback. So typically in the village, the Brunswick Beach overlay area has not had front setback averaging applied to it. To my knowledge, it never has. My concern is that this might get lost in this new wording. My concern is that front yard averaging will continue to not be applied to Brunswick. Because again, that would potentially make these small lots very difficult to develop if you happen to be between a couple of buildings that are set way back from the waterfront. Part of my concern that this might be this sort of standard of procedure that isn't as clear in the wording as I would like it to be, and my concern is that it might get lost over time, or somebody might challenge it, even though that is how the village has been applying the bylaws, not applying the setback averaging to the Brunswick overlay area. In the new wording, quote, where a parcel has a rear yard parcel line abutting the ocean or abutting the municipal esplanade abutting the ocean, setback averaging shall apply only to the parcel facing the ocean. And then on to the next word. Part of my concern of how Brunswick could be implicated with this, or how it could be impacted, is Brunswick is where we have properties facing an esplanade. It doesn't happen in the balance of the village, which gets my spider senses tingling about what might be the implication of the way this is being entered into. So I guess that is my concern, that the front yard averaging continue to not be applied to Brunswick, as has been the case. It has been the precedent and is set out in the example in the bylaw. There's not for any response here, but that's the extent of my comments, and thanks for your consideration.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there any other speakers in the gallery before we go online? Okay, Kristen, you'll open up to online.
If anyone is online and wishes to speak regarding the setbacks, please use the hand icon. I don't have any hands.
Okay, we've gone through first call, second call for any additional speakers. Crystal, anyone online?
No one online.
Okay, third and final call for any additional speakers. Anyone online?
Nope.
No. Okay, no further speakers. I thank the attendees for the participation and declare the public hearing closed. Okay, Mr. Blackwell, is it required to read through the protocol for the second hearing?
Regrettably, it's a brand new hearing, a separate hearing entirely. So for those that may have just joined and missed that wonderful oratory, they get to enjoy it second time.
Okay. That's well put. With that, I'll open it up. My name is Ken Berry, Mayor of the Village of Lions Bay. I'll chair this evening's public hearing. There are a few items to review. First item is opening and purpose. The public hearing is convened pursuant to section 464 of the Local Government Act to provide the public an opportunity to present the input regarding proposed amendments to zoning and development bylaw number 520, 2017. Council has given first and second readings to the proposed bylaw amendments and directed that this public hearing be held prior to the third reading. The public hearing has been advertised in the North Shore News on October 22nd and 29th of 2025. All relevant documents are available in the public hearing record binder at the front table in the municipal office and online. Second item, legal framework and conduct. The Local Government Act requires that any person who believes their property interest is affected by a zoning bylaw be given an opportunity to be heard and present their case. Council members must not engage in private communications with any party during the hearing and may only consider material available to all attendees. Public hearing is the opportunity for the public to present views and information, not to debate, negotiate, or ask questions of council or other attendees. Council members are entitled to hold views prior to the hearing, but are expected to consider all public input with an open mind. Third item, hearing procedure. Staff will summarize the proposed amendments and they will read a summary of the written submissions received during the notice period. Staff will call speakers in the order that they appear on the speakers list. After listed speakers, the floor will be open to anyone in attendance wishing to speak. Fourth item, speaker protocol. Speaker must state and spell their first name for the public record. Comments should be limited to issues directly related to the proposed bylaw amendments. Each speaker is asked to respect a 5-minute time limit. Everyone may speak once before speaking again, provided new information is presented a second or third time. There is no opportunity to ask questions or have questions answered by staff or members of the council. They are present only to hear from the speakers. The audience is asked to respect each speaker and refrain from interruptions. The chair may conclude any presentation that is irrelevant or abusive or repetitive. Fifth item, written submissions. Written submissions must be provided to staff before the close of the hearing to be included in the public hearing record binder. No additional written or verbal submissions from the public may be considered after the hearing closes. Sixth item, post-hearing considerations. Council may receive staff reports or conduct internal research after the hearing. Absent council members may participate in consideration of the bylaw amendments If they receive a report summarizing the representations made during the hearing, council may alter aspects of the bylaw amendments before adoption, except changing the use or density. Seventh item, introduction of staff. We'll introduce the staff who will run through the minutes of the verbal submissions. The CAO will also provide an overview of the proposed amendments and summarize any written submissions. Eighth item, speaker engagement. I'll call on the first and second persons to the microphone. After listed speakers, any other attendees may line up to speak. Speakers may return to the microphone if additional points are named. Ninth item, the staff may respond to clarify comments or questions raised during the hearing. 10th item, final call for speakers. The chair will have 3 calls for additional speakers. Before closing the meeting, no further speakers. The chair will thank the public and we'll close the meeting off. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Crystal.
I will pass to CAO Blackwell to give us an overview of the next grant.
Thank
All right,
you.
Blackwell.
Thank you very much. If Crystal, you could read the correspondence into the public hearing record, just the name and the date of the correspondence received.
Great. So we have received the following feedback submissions for hearing number 2, zoning bylaw 520, 2017, amendment bylaw 641, 2025, short-term rentals. We received a letter from Gail Craig, November 3rd, from Brian Hedberg on October 29th, Penny Nelson, November 3rd, Leslie Nolan, November 1st, and Andrew and Ingrid Ray on November 3rd.
Thank you very much. I believe most, if not all, of that correspondence has been made available to council, but it will be included in the post-hearing summary that will contain all of the information and sort of a staff report that summarizes the public hearing. So just to introduce the nature of this topic tonight, I'll read from my notes. So if I'm not looking at you directly, that's what I'm doing. So the purpose of the proposed bylaw amendment is twofold. Firstly, to modernize and clarify language related to short-term rental provisions in the zoning and development bylaw. And secondly, to ensure that the existing provisions are clearly lawful, enforceable, and consistent with applicable provincial legislation and regulatory standards. So with that in mind, it's important to emphasize that these amendments do not introduce any new permissions or prohibitions per se for short-term rentals in Lions Bay. What they've done is removed those elements that were ultra vires or beyond the legal authority when there were a few. And so it's been streamlined to strip those things out to ensure that what we are doing is lawful. The village already regulates short-term rentals within the zoning bylaws, so there's no substantive change to that. So accordingly, the scope of this public hearing is limited to the specific text amendments proposed and is not for the purpose of reconsidering or debating the overall permissibility of short-term rentals in the village. Whether short-term rentals are a good thing or a bad thing is not the subject of tonight's public hearing. Tonight's public hearing is limited specifically and only to the text amendments that are listed. And that's largely driven by 2 things. One is it's a regulatory requirement, but it's also not the venue for that broader discussion. Let's see, what else do I have here for notes? I lost my place here. Bear with me. So staff, as I've said, staff recognize that short-term rentals is a topic of interest to many residents in the community, and you've heard from a number of those tonight, and some are in the audience. Council, I'm sure, is already well aware of the different views around short-term rentals within the community as well as broader beyond in sort of the metro communities and sort of the implications. So With that, I'm happy to answer any questions of clarification. The changes have been before council for a very long time. Council has had the sort of the solicitor who was the author of these amendments, present the amendments and the rationale behind them. So all that's been made available to council. So if there are any questions of clarification, I will endeavor to answer them.
Any questions for Mr. Blackwell from council? No, okay. Yeah, Councillor Abbott.
Yeah, just one point of clarification, Ross. We've also decided to no longer have the policy that's currently on the website, correct? I think that's important.
That would be correct, yes. Would you like me to expand on why?
And I just wanted to make the statement that people understand the policy that's currently on the website will be done away with when those bylaws are approved. That's all.
Thank you.
Could you clarify why that would be?
Thank you.
Mr. Blackwell.
It's an important question. Typically, where in cases where whatever the bylaw is in question, whether it be zoning or other sort of regulatory bylaw in question, has language that is not clearly interpreted, or you're able to clearly interpret, it could be interpreted different ways, or is vague, or there are deficiencies with the specific sections of the language. What can be done, and is often done, is that there is a policy that is developed to help explain how the specific regulation will be implemented. So that was the case with regard to this, the STR provisions. Excuse me. When a bylaw is revised and improved, the goal is to ensure it's clear enough such that a supporting instructive clarification policy is not necessary. So that's what's happened here. The bylaw amendments are now deemed to be clear and sufficient such that a policy is no longer necessary.
Any other questions? Okay, no other questions. With that, I'll open it up to speakers. Anyone on the floor wish to approach the podium and speak? Okay, Crystal, anyone online?
If anyone is online, please raise your hand. We have Leslie Nolan.
Okay,
Chair, do I need to spell my name?
No, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, good. My question is, why has this not been sort of redlined where community members who may not know what the past bylaw entailed can't see what the changes are? That's my question.
Mr. Blackwell?
So as, if I could, as you instructed in your earlier comments, this is not about questions and answers. This is about only hearing, listening. So it would be sort of, as much as I would love to answer that question, if you want me to stick to sort of the rules, we're just here to listen. But I'm happy to talk about that later.
I'll just finish that and say, I think it's very difficult for community members to be able to write in responses when, you know, they've kind of got to go back to the 2017 and previous bylaws to understand what it was, what it is, and what the changes are. And it makes it just very, very difficult for us to all speak to it, understand it. That's all I'm saying. And I just think I think in the future it would be really nice to be able to have it redlined so that you can see what the changes are, just for transparency. I just think it would cause a lot less problems.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything further, Leslie? No? Okay, Crystal, next speaker.
There was another little hand, but okay, we have Marisa Lag.
Yep, Marisa Lagu. Again, do I need to spell my name or you've got it from Zoom?
I can see it, thank you.
Okay, great. I just have a again, not a question, just something to flag to potentially consider in the proposed 4.6.2G, which states that no short-term rental is permitted on a parcel unless it is connected to a community sewer system or has a septic disposal system that is capable of handling the demand generated by the short-term rental. It's my understanding that everyone's sort of babysitting their own septic system, so I just want to flag how the village may be planning to determine if that septic system is capable of handling additional load. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that. Anyone else, Crystal?
Don't have any more hands online using the. Okay, we have physical hands. Okay, we have Penny.
Okay,
Go ahead, Penny.
Penny? Go
Hello,
ahead.
yes, and Crystal, you know how to spell my name, I guess.
Yes, thank you.
Alrighty, I'd just like to make some comments. I did write this in a letter to council, and I hope that everybody had a chance to read it. I was listening to what the CAO had to say. My main concern with the proposed amendments, especially now that this policy has been voted down by a majority of council, is exactly that many of the safeguards that were included in the proscriptive policy, that was a temporary use permit policy as it was called, were in fact in response to resident input at the time, problems that were being experienced at the time. And these have now, in some instances, been done away with entirely, or they've been softened. Now, it is also true that policies are there to interpret the intent behind the bylaw. It doesn't mean that you don't have a policy if you have the bylaw, but unfortunately, these points that I'm about to make have actually been removed in some instances. My first comment was that the bylaw hasn't set any fines. The bylaw has to have fines in place, and there are none in this proposed amendment. In the original policy, which was the guiding light until now, provision was made that preference be given to Lions Bay residents for short-term rental permits. But what is happening now is that that part has been done away with. And potentially this could be in a policy versus a bylaw. But again, it is a question of how we choose to live as a community and what kind of community we want, which is in fact a bigger conversation that potentially should be had before this bylaw is finally amended now. Then a couple things that were not included also include there's no provision in the proposed amendments to address the problem that we have unregistered Airbnbs all over the place, and no amount of bringing these to light has actually had any successful outcome for the neighborhoods impacted by them. And of course, this does impact our housing availability in Lions Bay as well. Another thing that has been totally softened is there was a requirement in the policy that there be quiet times between the hours of 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. 7 days a week, and that owners of these properties would restrict the use of outdoor areas accordingly. This has actually been softened entirely. And the RCMP are at least half an hour away at very best. And that is why in the policy, there was a requirement that an owner or manager be reachable within a very short defined period. That has not been brought into the bylaw. It's imperative because it is Lions Bay and we're at a distance. So we're not other parts of Metro Vancouver where everything's far closer. So this is imperative, but it's been done away with. I'm not going to comment on why we can't say that there should be insurance on these properties and that the owners need to have insurance, including liability. What's also been removed from the policy is that there has to be some sort of notification that there are natural hazard in a specific area. And I think that if this isn't the liability of the owner any longer, who will be liable if there's a problem? As Maurice's pointed out, the sewage system regulation has been removed from the policy. And the previous requirement was that a professional actually determine whether the septic system can handle an Airbnb or similar short-term rental. There's a lot of laundry that goes on with this type of business. Trust me, I've been there. And the unfortunate instance here is that the current amendments propose that the CAO may consider the adequacy of the water and sewage systems but he doesn't mean that he will or that he is able to, because typically this kind of consideration is undertaken by a qualified professional. And we all know what older systems do in Lions Bay. The other big problem for me was that the specification that there be parking provided on site for the number of guests that will be able to stay in the Airbnb, that has been removed. And currently the proposed bylaw amendment says only 2 parking spaces will now be required. And if 8 to 10 guests are now to be allowed, and potentially 3 to 4 couples or families, where are they going to park? Are they going to be allowed to use resident-only parking, which is scarce enough as it is? Or where are they going to park? And how are they going to pay for this? And if they're buying permits in the office, or will they be given free visitor parking permits? Or how is that going to be enforced at the best of times? It is also fair to say that for the majority of the year, outside of a brief summer period, we don't have bylaw enforcement after 4 in the afternoon. So some of the problems have actually occurred in the winter. And that means that if a bylaw officer is not on duty from 4 p.m. on a Friday until whatever time on Monday morning, there's really nobody to call and to enforce parking issues and other short-term rental issues. So the other thing that really does bother me, and it has proven problematic even under the previous policy, which has now been done away with, is that the decisions here lie with staff. And what we know is that staff are not typically as familiar with Lions Bay neighborhoods, and they're not as familiar as members of council are. So the removing council from the decision-making process, which happened in 2017, it hasn't proved to be beneficial to the community. And that, I think, is fundamentally an issue.
Penny, I'm just gonna let you know that we're over 5 minutes, so if you can wrap it up, please.
Yes, my final paragraph of my letter reads as follows, is that I had suggested that any member of council who may be perceived as having a conflict of interest where short-term rentals are concerned may wish to recuse themselves from discussion and decision-making around short-term rentals in line with the community charter. And I do hope that council takes note of some of the commentary here because it's very valid. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you very much, Penny. Okay, next speaker.
Hi. Hello?
Go ahead, Tamara.
Yeah, this is Tamara. Sorry, I'm calling in from my phone and I can't, nothing seems to be working, but I just wanted to mention that I having had someone next door to me run an Airbnb without notification, it was very alarming and distressing. And I know that there must be others in the village that have gone through similar circumstances within the past few years. And there's a certain character and nature to the community or your own personal little area that changes when someone starts commercializing a residence, when a residential area turns into a commercial hospitality zone. And we're not talking, I mean, it seems small scale, but it's, people are coming and going. It becomes more transient. The garbage information doesn't necessarily get out, and we have increasing bear and raccoon and other types of activities. You don't know. There's other, other pets that are coming and going that you may or may not know. There's many other circumstances and actually interesting situations, both positive as well as just surprises that you don't think of when you have long-term neighbors and you kind of settle in a pocket, that when a residence is no longer habitated by the owner, but treated like a short-term hotel, it's a different character altogether. And I just would really encourage council to scenarioize different situations and their unintended as well as intended consequences and the benefits of the homeowners getting up to $500 a night for their property rental. But there's an impact to the broader community in that. And also the village has a broader impact as well. So there's a greater call on bylaw, there's a greater draw on resources. And we just need to be ready to capture both some of the profit if we're turning into a hospitality destination zone, and also that we're able to rise up to meet that moment if that's where we're driving as a community. And I think a broader question and response in terms of what areas, maybe there's a controlled zone, maybe there's, a certain area that's more calm or more reasonable in terms of parking and access to amenities and that sort of thing. The other thing is sometimes we're experiencing extreme wildfire danger, and I live up against the forest. So somebody who doesn't maybe know about, it's really dry outside, and they might go out and try and light a backyard fire and unintentionally start something bigger, or a backyard barbecue from charcoal briquettes that get a gust of wind, and then we're into a really dicey situation. Doesn't take a lot, especially if you are a city person coming for the first time to a wild and magnificent place like Lions Bay. A lot of these challenges, as I'm sure many of you remember when you first arrived here, like we did, we weren't prepared for bears. We had only seen bears in a museum, or not a museum, a zoo. But like you're not necessarily expecting all of the challenge that exists of living within a national park area. So each area has its zones. The waterfront has beautiful orcas and humpback whales and seals and all kinds of stuff. And I'm sure there's things that you guys need to think about who are down near the water that we don't need to think about up near the forest, but vice versa.
Tamara.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. I just want to respectfully remind everyone that this is a public hearing, and it's not to consider whether short-term rentals should be or should not be permitted in Lions Bay. Short-term rentals are already permitted under the current zoning bylaw. Tonight's hearing is limited to the proposed technical text amendments, which are intended to modernize and clarify the existing bylaw provisions.
Okay.
So please keep your comments focused on the specific amendments before council. Thank you.
No,
and you have 1 minute remaining.
Thank you. Thank you for reminding me of that. So I would just conclude that we currently don't rein in, the bylaw is not reining in, and we are not regulating and monitoring the bylaws currently in place for short-term rentals and Airbnbs. So if we're expecting to extend things out, we're not even doing the basic minimum. I mean, letters are sometimes going out, but there's no real monitoring, and there's no real, it's just, I think a bigger, a bigger consideration needs to be taken into effect, and more resources put in place in order to manage the unintended consequences that may follow. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tamara. Any others? Crystal?
Vincent,
Yeah.
you had your hand up earlier. Yes, okay, go ahead.
Yep. Hello, everyone. My name is Vincent Reicke, VINCENT REICHE.
Thank you.
Fairly new to the village. I lived 2 years renting in Mountain View. I've recently purchased a home on Calvin Grove. I personally believe that the new proposed bylaw amendments has been softened, and I think that the statements in the actual policy are less ambiguous and better well worded. So I would like to see that the words in the policy are used more in the bylaw to define things, if possible. Penny touched on a lot of the certain aspects. I can retouch on those. Certainly paragraph 3 in the policy, which states that the owner must employ an agent within Lions Bay to manage the STR, 24-hour per day contact information for the owner, and if the applicable agent must be provided to the municipality and all neighboring residents with 50 meters of property. The owner of the agent must be capable of responding to complaints made by neighbors within 1 hour and by the municipality within 24 hours. A report of the complaint and action taken shall be filed with the municipality by the owner or agent within 48 hours of such action. I believe that's a much more concise and unambiguous statement that is better than what is currently carried in the proposed change. There was certainly a statement that said owners must not rely on street parking to achieve the request count of parking spaces. I believe we should carry that in the bylaw to make it very clear that they cannot park on the street. There was another one that I highlighted here. In the quiet times, we should certainly specify the quiet times and make it very clear that they are between 10 p.m. and 8 a.m. There's no ambiguity there. I just believe that, I don't know who would do it, but someone needs to re-look at this original policy, and we should consider carrying these statements into the new bylaw, the new proposed bylaw.
Okay, Vincent, thank you. Any other speakers, Crystal?
No more hands.
Okay, I'll go to the gallery for a second. Okay, go ahead. Voting.
Name is Larry Silzer, Silzer, 14 Brunswick Beach Road, Line Clay. And good evening. I'd like to make a few comments. The first one being the method of notice. I think it was totally unprofessional to send a bylaw guy with his light flashing and issue or come around and serve a letter that is saying that they received a complaint regarding the use of the property as a short-term rental when they're fully aware, council, and I have an application in for a temporary use permit for over a year now. And they come and serve notice that you have 5 days to rectify this when they know full well we've been operating an Airbnb for over a year. And anyways, we received a notice, and that's the first time that I heard of the meeting. On the amendments, I have a couple comments, and one is the 4.62 F was where your 2 off-street parking spaces are required. And I'm thinking that if you have a small Airbnb where there's only room for 2 people, and it's usually 1 car that would be there, why would you need to have 2 parking spots made available and to meet the requirements of this application? So I think it should go by the number of bedrooms and the number of guests that are allowed in your rental. And in Airbnb, you have to state that the number of guests that are allowed per unit. The other one is, I think the 4.64, that the deposit of $2,500 in security deposit is a huge amount required for a simple application for an Airbnb. And I don't know if that's held on, as a cash deposit or letter of credit that can be used or whatever, but also I find that the fees that go along with the application with a temporary use permit, there's the application fee is $250 to start with. Then there's a inspection by the building inspector for $250. Then there's an application fee of $1,000, which I find, a huge amount for operating Airbnb. And what if you only get 3 or 4 rentals a year out of this, or several rentals? It wouldn't be worthwhile to even apply. And then to have this, I think it says in 4.66 that it's only, the application temporary use permit is only good for 1 year. And then you have to apply again, you have to pay the fees again, and you have to go through the same process, which could take a long time. I feel that there should be for a minimum of 2 years, your application fee should be allowed. And if at any time during that 2 years, if there's problems with it, there's mechanisms in place that you can stop the Airbnb. There should be some mention that you have to apply, and maybe there is, you have to apply with the provincial government in order to operate the Airbnb. And that's mandatory. If you don't have that provincial licensing, and there was mention that there's illegal Airbnbs running, well, Airbnb will not let you on their site any longer if you don't have that provincial registration. So that's puts an end to that illegal units being run. Basically, that's it.
Thank you. Okay, any others online or in the gallery? First reading.
We're not allowed to repeat, like, to say the same thing. Like, I received that letter on Friday as
Take the
well.
podium if you'd like, and
Okay.
state your name and Go
My name
ahead.
is Christine Norris, number 7 Brunswick Beach. I also received a letter on Friday and I knew nothing about this meeting at all and was quite shocked. So it's just a matter of notice, how much notice should be given to us. And I agree with everything Mary's saying.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Blackwell, just in terms of the notice, can you give us some background on that?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, thank you. The notice is set out by statute, so the province specifies what the notice obligations are. Excuse me, in this case, they don't have the dates, but this was published on 2 occasions with the North Shore News and on 2 editions of the VU. Ms. Kenna can perhaps give the specific dates.
Yes, the North Shore News was October 22nd and 29th, and the Village Update was on October 24th and 31st. And there was a special VU that went out today with the Zoom link. If anyone didn't see it, just as the general link on the website where you go to meetings.
Okay, thank you for that. Any other speakers? No, okay, I'll go to the second call for speakers in the gallery. Second call online, second call.
Online, we have Penny.
Okay, Penny?
Thank you. I did hear right up front with all those rules that we could speak a second time. I also wanted to comment on the process. I agree with the notion that actually the province requires 10 days notice for public hearing. We barely got 3. The information was not provided to residents. There were no links to the documents. And even then, when the links were sent out, there was no link to the now outgoing policy. So it has been an exceptionally poor process in my view, because people are clearly, you can see there's quite a lot of engagement here. I'd also just like to say that you know, in the previous council term, we did have public consultation on some very important matters. And I would like to agree with Tamara that this is fundamental to our community. And just to mention that I also do believe that we do need the policy in place. Right now, we have nothing. I'm astounded to hear that people are waiting a year for permits. But I also think that that's sort of indicative that there are non-permitted Airbnbs functioning even though they don't have permits. And I did make the suggestion in my letter that perhaps this is an instance where Lions Bay does want to have a business license, because Airbnb does require business licenses in most municipalities. And in those instances, it would be Airbnb that would pick up who does and who doesn't have the required license. So again, there's a whole nother conversation about business licenses, but potentially that is definitely a bigger conversation.
Okay, thank you, Penny. Anyone else online? Crystal?
No.
Okay, in the gallery, second time?
Me?
Yes.
Again, Christine Norris, number 7 Brunswick. I know we're not allowed to ask questions, which I find really odd because I'm just hearing about this now. And anyway, the problem that I have is I have an Airbnb in Vancouver and my fees are $80. And the amount of fees are, and we're not allowed to ask questions, how are they set? But they're so unreasonable that it's forcing people in a way to not comply or go underground or hide or whatever. I don't know how you came up with fees of that nature, other than someone stated earlier, they needed to do a little bit of a cash grab as well on, that wasn't the word that was used, but earn some money too off of the Airbnbs. So I just take great exception to the amount of money that you're charging. And are there any other municipalities of our size, or can the council simply just set the fee? That's a concern.
Okay, and the reason is this is a hearing to give your ideas and thoughts. Council will debate this. This isn't a forum for the council to debate now.
Yeah.
Ross, am I describing that correctly? Is this is a forum to gather as much information, then take it to council, have a debate?
Thank you. Yes, the purpose in public hearing is the second word, hearing. Council's role is just to listen. What we will do following this public hearing is consolidate all of this information, answer some of the questions, and provide a summary report to council. And based on that report and anything else, council will then consider the next reading of the bylaw. Just a reminder that council cannot receive any new information. Otherwise, it triggers problems that I won't get into now. That said, if anybody in the community is interested in a bit more detail, I've heard, for example, comments or questions around why certain information has not been included. And as I mentioned earlier, it's because it's not legal. It's not lawful to have those things in there, which is why they're not in there. So I'm available should anybody want to reach out to me by email or pop by the office or whatever, and I'm happy to walk folks through their questions.
Okay, and just further on that, so we appreciate your comments. They are being heard. They'll be summarized and presented to council, and council will debate them once more. So with that, any other speakers for a second time?
Two other hands up for a second time.
Okay, any in the gallery? No, okay, we'll go online.
We have Leslie was first.
Okay, Leslie?
Tamara was first, but that's okay. Mine is a question that I know you can't answer. And that was with regards to bylaw enforcement. I know we have many of us have.
Leslie, it's really hard to hear you. I'm not sure if you can turn it up or get closer.
Can you hear me? Sorry, can you hear me?
A little better.
Yes,
Yeah.
Sorry, let me just
Shout.
up my volume. Hang on. How's that? Is that better? And it's with regards to using our bylaw enforcement officer to ensure this issue is addressed throughout the year. We have currently a bylaw enforcement officer who works hard through the summer, trying to manage all the parking. And I would think off season, this is something that perhaps would be a good use of his time. Just a suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Tamara? Oh, you're muted.
Tamara, we can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Tamara, you muted.
Yes, sorry about that. I would really love to see some sort of cap on percentage of the village that can be used as Airbnb, because there's a tipping point and it will change the residential nature and character that is fundamental to our community. And certainly I would guess that 98% of the population didn't purchase their home here in Lions Bay to live next to a hotel of rotating, transient travelers. So I would really just to keep a cap on it, and that they have to be registered, they have to be listed, and that anything that is just like a pop-up unofficial be acted on and taken down, because when it's not, it really spoils the whole flavor of the experience. I mean, we've stayed in Airbnbs while traveling. We've also had a rental unit that we rented somewhere else to have more of an urban experience opportunity. And in that building, you could not do a short-term sublet in your condo, or you would be kicked out, and it was $250 a day fine for breaching that. So I think Lions Bay needs to get serious about the fines and the business aspect, because these folks who are running a hotel out of their home or buying a residential property to use as a boutique hotel, that's different than having a residence. That's a commercial operation, and they need to be ready to front that as a business, just like any other business owner or person who runs a business in this community. It's like it's a commercial endeavor, in my opinion, just like the store. So I think these are different lens filters for certain, but many have opinions. And I just thank you for bringing this forward. And again, a bit more notice. I only heard about it because it was posted, thankfully, on Lions Bay Neighbors. So thank you to everyone who did that. And thank you for this topic of conversation. It's interesting. It's also it's a shift. It's signaling a shift within our community and the flavor, and also an evolution as well. But thank you.
Okay, thanks, Tamara. I'll just remind the speakers to please focus on the technical text amendments. Next speaker.
Tahera? Sorry if I'm not pronouncing that correctly.
Hello, good evening, everyone. This is Tahera Mirza Ghafoor. First of all, I wanted to thank everyone for your time and all participants.
Sorry, can you spell your surname, please?
Sure, is Mirzaghaffour.
Thank you.
No worries. It has been a very useful meeting and hearing, and I just wanted to reemphasize about one of the points that has been brought up previously. Just as a feedback, since the majority of the community is in favor of moving towards this bylaw, that means that the village is thinking about the BNB seriously. If that's the case, at the core, as has been mentioned, this is a business. So it is important to take into account the economics and the finance of this whole process. And I believe there is a little bit of lack of attention in that regard, where the fees being charged for the application and then the inspection, all the fees that has been mentioned previously and within the text is a little bit, I believe, just miscalculated. Maybe a reconsideration would be a proper course of action. Thank you for your time. That's all.
Thank you very much for those comments. Any others online? Crystal?
Anyone else online? No
No.
hands.
Okay, we'll go to the third and final call for additional speakers in the gallery. No, online, Crystal?
Any more speakers online? No.
Okay, no other speakers. I thank the attendees for your participation and declare the public hearing closed. Thank you very much for attending. Thanks, Ross.
Thank you, everybody. I don't know if you want to also mention that council cannot receive, just a reminder that council cannot receive any further new information. But I can, and I'm happy to meet with any member of the community that has questions or respond to any emails that I can help with.
All right, thanks for that, Ross.
Just a second, Ross. It's a little noisy here.
I'm good. Sorry.
What do you call it? I'll just call him. Actually, you're right. I'll just call him. Thank you. It looked like we had a meeting.
Oh, yeah.